You know what Destiny needs? A cinematic mode. Destiny's environments and destinations and scenery are too good looking to not have a photo mode or a cinematic mode or some form of equivalent. Other games obviously solve this issue with the likes of a photo mode. Typically these games are single player games, meaning that they can pause the game, you can go into a photo mode and you can mess around with different borders, filters, depth of field and FOV adjustments, and you can make some pretty nice looking photos. The issue with Destiny is it isn't a single player game, it's a multiplayer game, and therefore you can't just pause the game if you're in a instance with other people in it. Currently, if you want to take a screenshot in Destiny 2, you have to turn off your HUD using the option which exists in the settings menu and switch weapon, and in the split second that there are no weapons on your screen, mid-switch, take a screenshot. And you have to make sure you're perfectly positioned. You can't mess this up. If you mess it up, you have to do it again. And it can be quite tedious, it can be quite annoying, frustrating, and eventually you will get the right shot. However, this only really works for photos. If you want to create, say, a trailer for Sabbath's song, which is a cinematic trailer, and it requires you to go into the strike and get cinematic shots of different things yourself. A photo mode would be very useful, a cinematic mode would be very useful, because currently in order to do this you would have to go into the strike and use a glitch on a warlock, so as your hand disappears, but your grenade is still on screen, so some shots may have a purple ball flying around the screen and they might not look quite right, which can be a bit frustrating and might make you run the strike about 20 times. My solution to this problem is Ghost mode. Ghost mode is based around the nav mode, which is in Destiny 2 already. If you press in your button, the same button which brings up your director in Destiny 2, if you tap that, it brings up your hand and your ghost appears. You have a few options here. You can summon your ghost, or you can return to orbit by holding in Y or triangle or equivalent in PC. And obviously you can rebind these buttons as well, which would also apply to this new ghost mode that I am proposing. I propose we add an additional button to this screen, such as B or circle, which is the crouch button, and have it so you have to hold this in so as you can still retain your crouching functionality whilst you're in this nav mode. So you hold in the crouch button and your ghost flies away from your hand, doing essentially the same animation that it will do when you're scanning an object. Your ghost will fly away from your hand, your camera will then go and follow your ghost and go into your ghost, and then you can fly around using typical controls that you would normally have if you're flying around in a video game. I would keep the horizontal movement the exact same as normal using the analog stick or WASD and that sort of thing. Vertical movement I would have controlled by the jump button and the crouch button, so space and control on PC, A and B on Xbox, X and circle on PlayStation, and I would also have sprinting obviously be a feature, so when you press in the sprint button your ghost will go faster, and I would also probably add a zoom function to this as well, so basically ADSing, so keep your ADS button, your aiming down sights button, as a zoom function in this mode, so it zooms in a bit. I don't know how much, don't know whether you zoom in as much as a AR or a hand cannon, maybe you zoom in as much as a sniper, maybe you can adjust this setting, I don't know, things to think about. I know that an FOV slider probably isn't realistic for this mode because current gen consoles can't really handle higher FOVs at a decent frame rate, and that could be an issue and that's a whole other can of worms. On PC however this would be pretty doable I would say, however having different versions of this mode for different platforms and stuff could get messy, therefore I'm not too fussed about an FOV slider, plus you can just change the FOV in PC anyway, and maybe that'll be coming to next gen consoles whenever they release. I would also have the exit button to get out of this mode as just being the same way you get into the mode. You press the director button and then you press the crouch button, you hold in the crouch button, and that gets you out of the mode. I know typical photo modes in single player games do have options, as I said before, such as filters and depth of field and FOV adjustments and all that stuff. I would say just leave that out of ghost mode. I don't see the point in it. Essentially this mode is just you flying around as your ghost. I think depth of field could have a place here, but that might be difficult to implement. I don't know how difficult it is to implement these features, so I would just say it's not necessary, but it would be a cool addition. I don't think filters are needed, I don't think borders are needed. However, FOV isn't really needed either because you can adjust that in your settings and that would affect ghost mode as well. There are a few issues with this mode however. The first issue being your camera. I don't know if it is possible to have your camera be separate from your guardian and you able to fly around as your ghost. I don't know if that's actually technically possible. I know we have seen in other areas of the game you're able to go third person with the use of swords or zippers, or if you're holding a void ball for example, you can go third person. However, the camera is still kind of angled at your guardian, and you can also use the likes of the selfie emote, which will put your camera into third person, but it puts the camera into your phone that you're holding in your hand. So it is still looking at your guardian, so I don't know if there's any restrictions with the camera has to be looking at your guardian or something like that. I'm not sure if that's an issue, but I don't know, and I can't answer that question, so that could be a potential issue with this mode. A second issue might be loading zones. I don't know how this would be handled. Obviously, Destiny 2 and Destiny 1 are just littered with loading zones, and it's just the way the game works. You go between different areas in patrol, or you go to a different section in a strike, it loads up the next section of the map, and it just loads the map in different stages. The issues here would be just handling how loading zones work. There are some questions that would need to be asked. Would you load the next zone? Would you not load the next zone? Some issues here would be if you don't load the next zone, do you put a barrier in place? Do you not put a barrier in place? Putting a barrier in place in every loading zone might be quite time consuming if you do it by hand, and that's going through every single loading zone in the game, and I can almost guarantee one loading zone will be left out, and therefore that's a new out of bounds glitch. The issue with this, or the non-issue with this shall I say, is that you can't do anything in ghost mode anyway, so it would almost just be a non-issue because you're flying around and you can't do anything, so it's just kind of like an interesting, out of bounds. You can't do anything with it, but hey, that's cool. There already are some out of bounds like that anyway. You can get into the Festering Core strike with an out of bounds glitch. It's really easy to do, but obviously it doesn't affect anything because you can't kill anything. You can get back into the strike from out of bounds, however, you're just in the environment. There are no enemies, so it's not like it's an exploit. My proposal for this would either be blocking off loading zones so as you just can't go through them, have an invisible barrier which kind of pushes you back, which is the typical invisible barrier that Destiny seems to have, or just have it so as you can load the next zone and your guardian stays in the past instance. I'm not sure about having your guardian teleport to the next area whenever you go through a loading zone. I'm also not sure how the game would handle your guardian not being there in that instance, or at least in that area, but I don't know how that works. I think ideally you would just load the next zone and your guardian would stay in a loading zone. That you could end up going the whole way around Nessus and your guardian being at the other side. You come out of ghost mode, you have to go back and go through a few loading zones or whatever. That might be the ideal solution, I'm not sure, but I think realistically blocking off loading zones is probably what's going to have to happen, and that might require quite a bit of work. There's also the issue of whether your guardian takes damage or not. I would say yes, let your guardian take damage. If there is no damage being taken, this could be used as an exploit in the likes of raids or something like that, where you're about to die, quickly go into ghost mode and you're invincible. Obviously you could disable health regen in this mode, however, if a teammate could take aggro off of you, then you could go back in and you don't die, so it could be seen as an exploit potentially. So I would say just keep taking damage, and if you die in ghost mode, you get the normal death screen with your ghost appearing where your guardian dies. That could be another point against having loading zones work, because then if your guardian dies 2 instances back, then what do you do? The last issue that I can really think about for ghost mode is out of bounds glitches. I've already touched on this with loading zones, however, there are some areas in patrol zones or strikes or lost sectors where there are wee cracks in the scenery which you can see out of bounds, but you can't get there because your guardian's hitbox is just too big. There could be a concern here where your ghost's hitbox is just smaller than a guardian's and it can just fit through the hole and you're out of bounds. As I said before, this is a bit of a non-issue because your ghost can't do anything when you're out of bounds. However, I know it's a bit dodgy to ship a mode which is just so easily to get out of bounds, and it might make the game look a bit less professional. I personally love out of bounds glitches. I love going out of bounds and seeing how the developers have made these scenes, seeing what cool things are out of bounds. I think it's really interesting. But I would say to prevent this, or to fix this sort of issue, would be just to use the same hitbox the Guardians have for your ghost. Nobody's going to see the hitbox realistically. You don't see hitboxes in game, and it wouldn't really cause any issues, and it would fix the issue of going through really small spaces. That's about it. I know I kind of rambled on at the end about different issues and stuff, but I think Ghost Mode is a pretty realistic goal, I think, maybe. I'm not sure how these things are coded. There could be something which just stops us dead in its tracks. Maybe I'll be shut down by someone, but I think the biggest thing which could stop this is just however cameras work in Destiny. I don't know if your camera has to be locked onto your Guardian or not. Cutscenes, cinematic cutscenes that are rendered in the game do use a camera, and they aren't always locked on your Guardian. Therefore, maybe you can just fly around as your Ghost. However, there might be some technical restraints around this, and maybe it's just not possible, so I'm not sure. I think this is an ideal solution to having a cinematic mode in Destiny 2. It also provides an in-game, an in-universe explanation as to why there's a photo mode other than just plopping it in the game, which I know is a big thing in Destiny, having an in-universe explanation for everything. And of course the explanation is you're taking control of your Ghost. You're flying around as your Ghost, and it's just your Ghost flying around and having a fun time. Aesthetically, I would also have a blue shield going around the Ghost, just as an explanation as to why your Ghost doesn't just die, pretty much, whenever he leaves your hand, because we've seen, obviously, Cade's Ghost has been blown up by a sniper shot. However, that was a thorn shot, and they didn't have an overshield at the time, but that's besides the point. I've rambled on long enough. If you think this is a cool idea, please let me know. If you get any additions to this idea, please let me know. And if you've got anything that can shut my idea down in its tracks, also please let me know. It would be pretty amusing. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like, maybe even subscribing, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye.